going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and this is your preview for NXT Vengeance Day, the first not WrestleMania weekend NXT pay-per-view to happen outside the Performance Center. Now, I will say right off the bat, I am really hoping that they go back to an old school thing where when the first couple of takeovers were in Full Sail, they promoted NXT TakeOver The End, and nobody knew what that meant. And then right as Triple H was doing the introduction, he introduced it as NXT TakeOver The End of the Beginning, and that was basically their clever way of saying that, you know, they were going out of Full Sail, they were going out on the road. I think TakeOver Brooklyn came right after that, and then after that we had one more Full Sail show, and then it was on the road from there. Obviously, we're past that point now, and this is a very different NXT, but I really hope, because there was a rumor that circulated when Triple H took over, I really hope at the beginning of this show, because they are back in an arena, because we are, you know, sort of kind of going in a new, taking a next step with this version of NXT, I really hope they introduce it as, you know, thank you for tuning in to NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day, because the first Vengeance Day was a takeover. Don't believe me? Go play your WWE 2K games. There is a takeover Vengeance Day stage, because the first Vengeance Day was a takeover. It was in the Performance Center. Don't get me wrong. On the game, you have to play behind the stupid plexiglass, even though you can't catch COVID in a video game. But the first Vengeance Day was a takeover, so if you bring that back and apply it to getting out of the Performance Center, I think that's going to be really cool. Now, going to Charlotte, going to the arena and all that kind of thing, supposedly this is outselling this week's Dynamite, which is fine. I'm not going to take that as too much of a victory. I only saw that on a graphic shortly before I sat down to record here tonight. I'm not going to take that as too much of a victory, because Dynamite is a weekly show and Vengeance Day is supposed to be a premium live event, but it's something. It's something for the people that are out there that say NXT does nothing and does nobody and nobody cares and roddy raw. And, you know, they only get a pop in the Performance Center because people in the Performance Center don't know what they're really watching and all that kind of thing. So we're going to get an arena-sized audience. It's going to be like Stand and Deliver. Stand and Deliver was an interesting one as well, because they actually took it to an arena when Stand and Deliver was a namesake and an idea for a show that was born in the COVID PC era. So that's an interesting one as well. That'll be part of WrestleMania weekend. I think when they do Stand and Deliver, it's going to be midday on Saturday. Not sure how I feel about the midday pay-per-views, but it is what it is. So, first and foremost, before we get into anything else, throw it down in the comment section below or hit me up on Twitter at SpazPhoenix. Let me know how you feel about NXT finally getting out of the Performance Center for a pay-per-view. Let me know if you think they will throw on the TakeOver tag at the last minute. Let me know if you care about that, because I do, because TakeOver was a brand that existed. NXT was a brand, but when NXT, especially when it went on the road, from the first TakeOver Brooklyn onwards, TakeOver itself was a brand. I'm going to sneeze. Nope, it was a cough. Alright, so we got 6 matches on the show, which is large for an NXT show, because the NXT sweet spot used to be 1 match for each of the titles and then 1 extra match, but now we have more titles, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass. The New Day are defending the NXT Tag Team Championships against Gallus, Pretty Deadly, and Chase University. Now, first and foremost, you can make an entirely other Fatal 4-Way just out of the teams that are left when you take them out. Because you've got the Creed Brothers, you've got Indus-Sher, you've got Briggs and Jensen, you've got the Dyad representing the Schism, you got, what's-his-name and Blade, who are just kind of there. This is one of those process of elimination things for me, because Chase University is going to break up. Don't know if it's necessarily going to be at this show, but it's going to happen. Duke Hudson's not a good guy. Credit to the guys at What Culture when they were talking about this show earlier today. The key point of the Andre Chase Duke Hudson breakup is going to be the oversell of the heartbreak from Thea Hale. Thea Hale is one of the diamonds in the rough on NXT. She is so fucking ridiculous Scrappy-Doo in the best way possible. I really hope they find something for her to do once the Chase U thing falls apart. They're not winning. Pretty Deadly are also not winning if I have any say in it at all, which I don't. Let's be real. I'm a guy with a podcast. But they need to fuck off. I get what they are, and I don't have a problem with what they are. They're the campy, hoity-toity, whatever, we're too good for this. Oh my god, I'm not going to wrestle with those brutes type of characters. And that's cool. There's a place for that. There really is. I'm not pissed off that they had a championship run, because they're not bad wrestlers either. But it's a little much for muchness at this point, and I just don't need to see them in the title picture for a while. It's, again, I go back to everybody that's not in this. The Dyad, and I'm not going to do the voice again because, you know, don't want to overplay a joke, unlike some people. The Dyad, they're in a shit gimmick right now, but the Grizzled Young Veterans are an awesome team, and being in this faction has gotten them nothing. You could have them rebel against Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy could still have Ava Raine as his, like, student under him. She hasn't wrestled yet, has she? That's a completely other conversation for a completely other time. Throw that on the kickoff. Throw on Ava Raine, The Rock's daughter, and everybody keeps drilling that in, even though they've never mentioned it once on the show. So if you know, you know, and you're making it a thing on your own. But do Ava Raine versus Thea Hale as an unannounced match on the kickoff. That could be a lot of fun. But here's the thing. The Grizzled Young Veterans, as you know if you watched NXT UK when it still existed, are a great fucking team. And I would love to see them specifically lock up with Gallus, who I'm going to talk about in a second. But the Creeds into Sheer, who you're trying to reheat, and it's taken a couple of times to actually get there, managed by Jinder Mahal, which is an entirely other element all in and of itself, are all better options than Pretty Deadly at this point, because not only have they been in that title picture for so long, they've been going head to head with the New Day since they decided to bring the New Day to NXT, and that's getting stale. Throwing two other teams into the mix like Gallus and Chase University does not cover up the fact that this is another Pretty Deadly New Day rematch, and I don't need to see that. Now, we're not idiots here. We don't play stupid here. We know why the New Day are in NXT. First of all, Kofi Kingston's never been in NXT in any significant way, and Austin Creed or Xavier Woods, I don't know why I just called him Austin Creed, came from NXT, and it was a nice, cool homecoming for him. So there's a feel-good story there, but let's be real, they brought New Day to NXT because New Day is popular, and they had a pay-per-view to promote. I do think that time is over. I think as we get closer to WrestleMania, they're going to get themselves back in the mix properly on the main roster. They've got that weird thing going right now, along with a couple of other teams and the Viking Raiders and all that kind of thing, so they can insert themselves back in the picture quite quickly. Also, I do have to give, because I'm going to talk about the Rumble properly when we do WWE Last Week, which is going to go out next Monday. So this is kind of going to be out of order a little bit. But holy fuck, Kofi Kingston fucked himself up at the Rumble when he took that fall out of the ring, and I don't know, it was supposed to be a spot. Last year, when he messed up his spot, and I don't say messed up because he's got a lot of cool spots. He's not quite John Morrison, but he's Kofi Kingston. He's all right. He messed up the spot last year, and everybody felt bad for him because he just slipped a little bit, and his feet touched, and isn't that unfortunate? I bet that was going to be something cool. This year, I don't know what the hell they were doing, but he basically suicide dived headfirst into a chair. I don't know what that was supposed to be. Nobody has really said anything, or I haven't heard anything, although I don't really dig that deep other than listening to What Culture. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any rumblings or rumors that he's seriously injured. I mean, they took him out of the match. They didn't replay fuck all when that happened. So I hope he's okay. I hope he's in the match. I hope it's not a case of Xavier Woods comes out to forfeit the titles and it becomes a triple threat. Because if they have to do that, hoping it's not true, let me be clear, underline it, hoping that's not true. But if it is true, don't just cut it down to a three-way. Put the Dyad in there. Because you know who would take advantage of an opportunity like that? Oh yeah, their buddies, the Schism. I said I wasn't going to do the voice, but here we are. But New Day, Gallus, Pretty Deadly, Chase University. Chase University's on their way to a split. Pretty Deadly need to fuck off. New Day are going back to the main roster. I'm saying put those titles on Gallus. I know a lot of people don't like Gallus, but I don't get why. They're fun brawlers, and it can be a good-ass time. That's all you need. I don't know where Joe Coffey is, because since Gallus has come back, it's only been Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. For those of you that follow them in NXT UK, I can sort of speak to that. I can't speak to what they did on the UK Indies, obviously, because I'm not really an indie guy. Other than Destiny, okay, sorry, side note. Other than at Destiny, and I gotta send out a huge bit of love to our now former Destiny World Champion, Aiden Prince, who absolutely fucked himself up at their New Beginnings show on Sunday, the night after the Royal Rumble. I happened to be there. I was in the front row. It was sort of the one thing you don't want to be in the front row for. So shout out to Aiden Prince, who's a really cool dude and a really awesome wrestler, and sort of is like the guy in Destiny right now. You don't want to say things like that because everybody contributes and everybody participates and all that kind of thing, and everybody, you know, many hands make a show. I'm sorry, Aiden Prince has been my guy at Destiny for a while, and he took a pretty hard fucking fall. So shout out to him, all the good wishes to him. I think he's having surgery next week. Anyways, getting back to my initial point, though, Gallus, I can only speak to what I saw in NXT, and NXT was Joe Coffey, or in Gallus in NXT UK was Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang. So you would think that the single guy would go for the singles titles, and the brothers would be the tag team that went for the tag titles. But as far as I remember, it was always Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, which is fine. It's just a different dynamic for a trio. And Joe Coffey went off to fight guys like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Walter, I think, back when Walter was still Walter. Put them on Gallus. Honestly, they just came back. It's fine. Pretty Deadly are what they are. Like I said, I'm going to start repeating myself at this point. Chase University is on their way to a split, and that'll be entertaining in its own right, because then we'll just move on to Andre Chase versus Duke Hudson. New Day will come back up to the main roster, and it'll be like they never left. And hopefully, either they've bolstered the roster enough that the Stand and Deliver show will stand on its own, will literally stand and deliver. Haha, see what I did there. Or they'll integrate somebody else down from the main roster, because they seem to be a lot more free with that than they were in previous eras. I will say, even now, OG Black and Gold NXT was the best. Better than what's going on right now. The one thing I will say about this is they are not shy about the integration. Now, there's a selfish monetary ratings reason for that, but it also does help. Natalya coming down when she's doing nothing on the main roster and helping out somebody like Cora Jade is awesome. Dolph Ziggler, who they haven't used properly in years on the main roster, having a couple bumps around with Braun Breaker doesn't hurt anybody at all. So if you could go back in time to good NXT and pick out the one thing that would have made good NXT better, it would have been this integration that we're seeing now. Now, Black and Gold NXT brought back Finn Balor and fixed Finn Balor because the main roster broke him. Black and Gold NXT tried to bring back Charlotte, but nobody's going to cheer Charlotte, because how dare you be white, blonde, successful, and have an unpopular dad, you weirdos. But yeah, this is the one good thing that we have with this current, I guess, NXT version 3. Gold, whatever we're calling this. Sticking with tag teams, Katana Chance and Caden Carter versus Fallon Henley and Kiana James. I'm going to go with Fallon Henley and Kiana James, purely for comical value. Put the titles on them, have them be an odd couple tag team for a little bit. Mostly, and this is not for the benefit of Henley or Kiana James, sadly, but it's because I want Katana Chance and Caden Carter to come up to the main roster and challenge Damage Control for those tag titles. I do. I just do. I think they're a fun team. I think they get a bad rap because of things not wrestling related, and that's really shit. Caden Carter, Katana Chance should have been on the main roster already. People say that about Roxanne Perez, but we're going to get to her shortly. Yeah, Fallon Henley, Kiana James, the whole, one of them is a businesswoman and the other one's like trying to save her bar and whatever. And the whole Briggs and Jensen thing, because Jensen's whacking off to both of them. I could do without that, not going to lie, but it's 2023. This is how we portray male characters in our television programs, because how dare we be, projected strongly and smartly and like we have a brain in our heads, because people couldn't handle that. Kiana James and Fallon Henley both are awesome in the ring, though. Stupid gimmicks aside. They proved it in the, what do you call it, the elimination thing. Oh, can't think of the name of it now. That stupid eliminator thing that they did at the last pay-per-view that was actually really fun. At Deadline. So I want to see them featured more. If it takes a title to do that, then fine. I want to see Katana Chance and Caden Carter on the main roster. I want them to be the ones that show up on the Raw after WrestleMania. I want them to have like one last blow off at Stand and Deliver, and then they show up on Monday Night Raw and they stare Dakota Kai and Io Sky in the face and go for those titles. And maybe they grab a third person, probably somebody like a Becky Lynch, to head up that team, and you can do some more 3-on-3 stuff, some trios stuff for my AEW fans out there. Roxanne Perez versus Gigi Dolan versus Jacy Jayne. Here's the thing: Roxanne Perez ain't losing her title. This is a building block match for her. She's the new project. I don't like how she got to the title because they really fucked over Mandy Rose. Not a fan of that. She's being super successful elsewhere, doing else things, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Good for her. Roxanne Perez is a star. The people that have said that she could have bypassed NXT altogether and gone straight to the main roster, absolutely true. Did she have an absolutely phenomenal showing in the Women's Royal Rumble? Absolutely true. When I saw her in exactly one match on Impact defending the ROH Championship so that she could drop it to Deonna Purrazzo, which led to Deonna Purrazzo doing the Champ Challenge, which was a lot of fun. If you watch Impact, you know what I'm talking about when she had the ROH and AAA titles, and basically what she would do is she would call out somebody for an open challenge and tell them, okay, which belt do you want to fight me for? And then it would go from there. I thought it was a really cool way to put a spotlight on AAA, spotlight on ROH, two companies that I knew nothing about, and a really cool way to just have Deonna Purrazzo do what's a pretty tired trope in an open challenge, but like the Champ Challenge made it interesting. Bottom line, she picked up the title after Roxy had to drop it because she had been signed by NXT. In one match, obviously I'm biased, I love Deonna Purrazzo. It's hard to have a bad match with Deonna Purrazzo. You could have put her on the main roster. Absolutely. Absolutely you could have. But in the meantime, we're going to reinforce her as the NXT champion in the hopes that people forget what led to her getting there and the whole release of Mandy Rose thing. So, not the best way in the world is to do it with Mandy Rose's former faction mates. Now, it's a triple threat match, the idea being that there's a little bit of contrition between the two remaining members of Toxic Attraction, but it's still, in everything but name, it's still I can speak, I swear. It's a handicap match masquerading as a triple threat match. There we go. All my words came together. So what it is it's two bodies instead of one for Roxanne Perez to beat as we go on to this larger stadium-style stage. Very well deserved. She's awesome. Love to see it. If Toxic Attraction actually do fall apart in this match, and if for some reason they're going to fast track Roxanne Perez to the main roster, also wouldn't have a problem with that. Put it on Gigi Dolan. Out of the two of them, Gigi Dolan and Jacy Jayne, Gigi Dolan shows a lot more character to me. She shows a lot more character naturally, and Jacy Jayne is trying harder. And the more you see one try, the one that does it naturally just sort of comes out more. I don't know if that's going to make sense. I don't know if you guys are quite going to understand what I'm saying, because I don't know if I'm saying it very well. Roxanne Perez is winning, unless they're fast-tracking her to the main roster. So it's my prediction slash what I think should happen is like 99% Roxanne Perez, 1% Gigi Dolan. Jacy Jayne, you're going to be the warm body that eats the pin. Even when Roxanne wins, Jacy Jayne's eating the pin. It won't be Gigi Dolan if I'm correct, but that's what predictions are, right? Moving swiftly on. If she loses the title and stays in NXT, then I'm going to say, okay, you guys have kind of made a mistake a little bit. Not going to lie. Wes Lee is defending against Dijak. And here's the deal. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I got to take back a lot of what I said a couple of years ago. Because when Dominik Dijakovic debuted on the main roster, or on the NXT roster, I was like, okay, this is a big guy that they're using to put up against Keith Lee, who's also a big guy, so that we will all look at Keith Lee, the big guy, and say, wow, isn't he a big guy? Didn't give him his flowers then. Wasn't really able to give him his flowers on the main roster because Retribution was kind of shite. I like him now. I really do. I don't think he's winning. Wes Lee is an awesome champion, but it's gonna be a very cool dynamic. Wes Lee is one, I think, if not in actuality, he's at least presented like one of the smallest guys on the roster, other than like actual cruiserweights, like Axiom. But he's a great champion. They're going to solidify him again on this big stage against somebody much bigger because, you know, David and Goliath and all that kind of thing. I still don't get the whole thing. I know they had a little bit of a bickering thing on Twitter, him and Kenny Omega, but this whole, oh, he must be trying to be Kenny Omega because he's got a jacket and glasses. So did Bret Hart look forward in time? Was he trying to be Kenny Omega? That's a weird take, and it's stuck around on Twitter way too long now. Really, really stupid take. I think this is going to be an insane match. I think between, you know, typical story, size and power of Dijak versus the speed and agility and quickness of Wes Lee, I'm predicting there's going to be a stupid spot in this match at some point. Like, he's going to get thrown around like an empty tracksuit, to quote the great Adam Nicholas. They're going to try and do something, a PG version of something as reckless as Joe and Darby Allin, and they're not going to win. Joe and Darby Allin, I don't have much nice to say about AEW right now, but Joe and Darby Allin last night, as I'm recording this on Thursday evening, was fucking insane. And we do know that Tony Khan's default button is, we need some ratings and we need to pop, somebody bleed. And they did it twice in one night. Law of diminishing returns will come and get you, sir. But yeah, Wes Lee and Dijak are going to do whatever the WWE equivalent of that is, I think. I think by the definition that they're fighting for a mid-card championship, I think they're going to try and break what people see a mid-card championship match as. Gunther has done that recently. So has Austin Theory in a very, very different way. Not so much by what he's done, but by the challengers that surround him. They're building the Elimination Chamber around the United States Championship. So there's something there. I'm just putting it out there. Apollo Crews and Carmelo Hayes. Everybody is saying this match is the dark horse match to steal the night, and not just because it's February. Carmelo Hayes is fucking great. Way overdue for the main roster. Him and Trick Williams, way overdue for the main roster. I could get into the story. The story's kind of weird. And Apollo Crews is a bit of a different case for me. There's a very, very bad take out there about Bray Wyatt. You guys know I like Bray Wyatt. I like the spooky shit and whatever. There's a very, very bad take that sort of says, and then the bell rang. You know, oh, he's got a great story. He's great on the mic. They've done some really cool gimmicks with him. They've done some really creative things. And then the bell rang. Which basically means, oh, he's a great storyteller, but he sucks in the ring. Which is absolutely not true. You guys are idiots. And if you didn't like the Pitch Black match, you're an idiot twice. Now, Apollo Crews is almost the opposite of that bad take. Because I love watching the guy in the ring. Nothing he has done in his first run in NXT on the main roster or in this new run on NXT now, even though he's trying, and I will give him credit, and you can see where the effort is. Nothing he has done to get to any of his matches has made me give a single fuck. The whole, I'm gonna go to your hair cutter because I don't have any hair, isn't that hilarious, doesn't cut it. I'm looking forward to the match because the match itself is gonna be awesome. How we got there, I mean, Carmelo Hayes is awesome. And the whole stuff between him and Trick, and the way they put things together, the way his whole A champion when he was the mid-card champion thing was great. I do wish, as much as I just heaped a lot of praise on how good I think Wes Lee and Dijak is going to be, I do wish that these two matches had canceled each other out and we were getting Wes Lee versus Carmelo Hayes. Because there's two guys that I give a shit before the match, know the match is going to be good, and I know I'm still going to care about both guys at the end. What I mean by that, unfortunately, is I don't care about Apollo Crews before the match. I know he's going to give me a good match, and I don't care what they do with him afterwards. Because the story is Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes has to do one of two things. And I know I'm repeating myself, and I'm saying this about a lot of different people. He's going to win. He's going to win on Saturday. That much I can tell you right now. That I will shave off the rest of my remaining hair if they give this win to Apollo Crews. again, sounds like I'm being a dick to Apollo Crews. It's really, really not my intention. There's two things you do with Carmelo Hayes at this point. You put him on the main roster, the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania, or you give him a run at the NXT champion next. Now, that's going to tie into who I think is going to win the championship, but there's only two ways you can go. Don't let him sit idle anymore. Like, the expression strike when the iron's hot. The iron's been hot for about 6 months. It's not going to stay hot forever. Give him the championship. Let him be the guy, or put him on the main roster. Let him have more matches with Ricochet. Let him rekindle his shit with Solo Sikoa. Put him in the ring with, I don't know, somebody like a Kofi Kingston. Somebody like Carmelo Hayes versus Finn Balor. Give me that shit. Carmelo Hayes versus Seth Rollins. Give me that shit. Give him that, proving ground to get himself to another proving ground, to get himself to another proving ground. Or strap him and make him the captain of the ship for the next 6 months. One or the other. That's really all you can do. Sorry I'm burying Apollo Crews as I say that. And obviously Trick Williams goes with him. They're a package. If they don't use him as a single star right away in the main event, can you imagine Carmelo and Trick versus the Usos? The bloodline is already falling apart. Or, as most people seem to think it's going to be Team Canada after WrestleMania, Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. There you go. Apollo, sorry about your damn luck. Braun Breaker versus Grayson Waller in a steel cage for the NXT Championship. How did we get here? It was stupid. They broke the ring twice. I do think this is an awesome match to save for a larger audience, to save for a steel cage, and these guys are going to kill each other. Braun Breaker is going to go in there with all the weird, super souped up jock energy, and Grayson Waller is going to go in there and be Grayson Waller. Breaker's going to the main roster. Waller's winning this. Waller's either winning this or something drastically fucked up happens and Waller wins at Stand and Deliver. One or the other. One of them is going to happen. But what does that do? That sets us on a brand new course. You've elevated Carmelo Hayes as far as you can possibly elevate him, and you've put him on... You've put him in a championship scenario that has Grayson Waller at the head. The matches, the promos, the stories, the angles between Grayson Waller and Carmelo Hayes should be your entire plan for NXT post-WrestleMania. Unless Carmelo Hayes is going to the main roster, then maybe you do something else. Maybe you do a Dijak. Maybe you do something else along those lines. But we know they're sending Braun Breaker up after Mania. I'm pretty sure they're sending Roxanne Perez up after WrestleMania, if not beforehand. If you are putting them up, maybe hold back on Carmelo Hayes, because then you get into that situation where it's just a bulk of people being pushed onto the main roster all at once, and we're not AEW here. We don't do that. Breaker goes up, Waller goes up, Carmelo Hayes goes up into contention. Gigi Dolan gets the women's title, maybe defends it against Nikita Lyons when Nikita Lyons gets back from injury, which we hope is soon, because that sucks. You could throw Zoe Stark back in the mix. Cora Jade, I don't know, maybe while somebody's competing for the title, she's in that contenders scenario. There's way more tag teams than people want to admit in NXT. As I said, I'm gonna end on this because people are still going out there with the narrative that there are no tag teams in NXT. You might not like them, and that's totally fine. There's no tag teams in that brand that you like. That is a totally valid thing. I'm not gonna piss on your chips for that. But to say that there aren't any tag teams, Gallus, Pretty Deadly, Chase University, Creed Brothers, Indus Share, Briggs and Jensen, the Jism has the dyad. Idris Sanofi, Malik Blade. I think they're trying to do something with Drew Gulak and Charlie Dempsey. If they become like this super work rate technical tag team, that could be fun. There's tag teams. It's absolutely fine. Take Gigi Dolan and JC Jane and Katana Chance and Kaden Carter out and maybe put the women's tag team titles on the shelf for a little bit so that those two teams can boost up the main roster, because the main roster could use some teams. There's a lot of things you could do here, and this is like the preview of the preview, because this will set our course towards WrestleMania weekend, Stand and Deliver, and that's where all the even bigger things will happen. If big moves are happening, if big changes are happening, if big, I don't know whether you want to call them drafts, are happening, they're going to happen in and around WrestleMania. But here at this show this Saturday, I think is where you start setting the groundwork for those moves to happen so that we can speculate afterwards. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, the big thing is them getting out of the Performance Center, getting in front of a different crowd, getting in front of a bigger crowd, and selfishly, I would love them to brand it TakeOver at the last minute, because it would just, I'm going to borrow a Simon Miller phrase here, it would make me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to you every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.